Hello and welcome. My name is Jackson Hardin. I am a private coach. I'm a mentor. I'm a practitioner. I like to talk about embodiment techniques. I like to talk about personal development. I like to talk about discipline. I like to talk about learning how to relax. I like to talk about balance. In this video, I'm going to be sharing a little bit about discipline in and of itself. I recently put out a request on Instagram just asking, what are some things you would like to hear me talk about to my audience, to people I've worked with. And one of the things that came back was discipline. How do I become disciplined? Tell me more about discipline. So I decided to do a little write-up on my thoughts around discipline and give some tips and tools and some insights on how to develop discipline in your life and how to apply the discipline that already exists in your life to different areas that you may be wanting to apply it to. So I want to start out by saying that discipline is important. It's foundational. It's foundational because if we don't have the ability to sit down and do the thing that we want to do, if we don't have the capacity to show up to our commitments regularly, it's going to affect whatever area of our life we want to focus on, but it's going to affect our life. So if we develop the skill of discipline, and it is a skill, it's something that can be learned. It's not something that some people have and some people don't. It's like learning to ride a bike. If you practice riding the bike over and over again, you'll eventually get it. And discipline is the same. If you practice discipline over and over again, then you will become disciplined. You will be better at being disciplined. But beyond that, the notion that you aren't disciplined, the notion that anyone isn't disciplined, is something that I like to challenge a little bit. I've worked with a number of different people in different areas of their lives, and recently I was having a conversation with someone where he said, I'm not disciplined in this business development. And we talked a little bit more, and it turns out that he is disciplined when it comes to exercise or working out at the gym. And I always find analogies like this to be very helpful in explaining how to bring practices or endeavors that we want to bring into our lives into different areas. This individual was disciplined with the gym. He showed up regularly, he did his workouts, he did his routines, he enjoyed them. And so the question becomes, if you're disciplined in this area, why aren't you disciplined in the other? And we explored it a little bit, and what we found was some of the things I'm going to be sharing with you here, in regards to tips on discipline. He was applying when it came to the gym, and he wasn't applying when he came to his business. And these are just some very common things that most of us forget to take into account when we try to take on a new endeavor. But the reason I tell all this to you, again, is because I don't necessarily believe that people aren't disciplined. People are disciplined. They're just disciplined in certain areas, right? So, for instance, he's disciplined in the gym, not in business. Some people might be disciplined by sitting down and reading books regularly. There's something that they do over and over again. What's that something that you do over and over again that you can show up to regularly? And if you take that thing in your life that you show up to regularly and you look at the way you're engaging with it, or you look at the way that you approach it, you can transfer over those approaches and those techniques to this new area of your life that you want to be more consistent at. For example, the person who was going to the gym regularly but was having challenges with his business, he was clear about why he wanted to go to the gym. He knew why he wanted to show up. He wanted to get in shape, take care of his body. He had the list of all the reasons why it was important to him. He was clear about what his goal was at the gym, what he was working towards. He wanted to, I don't know what he wanted to do, gain muscle or whatever, but he knew what he wanted to do, so it was then easy for him to create the plan of what needed to be done. If you want to become a fighter, then the things that you do at the gym might be a little bit different than someone that wants to powerlift, right? So he had his destination, and then he was able to create the workout routine or the regimen that would get him there. He also enjoyed the process because he knew it was getting him towards the goal. So these are just some examples of how you can carry the framework of an area you are disciplined in to another area of your life. I'm going to go into some more specifics here around tips for developing it. But that's a big one, is if you could just transfer what you're already doing in one area regularly to the area that you want to develop, it can make it much easier to approach and much more digestible. So let's go through some things that can be helpful as you start to develop and grow this muscle discipline in your life, or better yet, tap into what's already there. So first off, start small. A lot of times when I talk to people, they have difficulty with, well, one that comes up right now is meditation. They have difficulty with meditation or staying consistent with a meditation practice. And part of the reason is they've never meditated before, and now they're trying to commit to sitting down 20 minutes every single day. They're going from 0 to 100, right? So my advice to them in these situations is start small. Do 5 minutes. Do something that you can show up to regularly and consistently. And as you do that, you can begin to grow that practice, right? So instead of just doing 5 minutes, you can do 10 minutes. And then after you've done 10 minutes for a while, you can do 15 minutes. So you're slowly increasing your ability to, stay on the cushion. The same could be true for the workout, right? Maybe just go work out for 20 minutes. Just move your body. And then as you start doing that, maybe 30 minutes starts to take on, and 45, an hour, or whatever it is. But just starting somewhere small where you can get some wins, you can get some successes. That's tip number one. Start small with your disciplines. And I really recommend like this 5-minute thing if it comes to something like reading or meditating or even working on your business. Just make a small commitment of 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, whatever it is, something you can show up to regularly. Do that consistently and then expand and grow how much time you're putting into it. And what's more is you'll find, kind of like when you go for a run, at first there can be a lot of resistance, like I don't want to do this, oh, this is terrible. But then as you start going, the momentum picks up, and then that difficulty removes itself. But we have to get through kind of that barrier that takes place in the first few minutes, which is why I recommend that small amount of time, 5, 10, 15, to get going. If you sit down for 15, you might sit down for 30. So start small. The second one, and this could really be the first one, is be clear on what you want to attain, on what it is you want to do. One of the reasons that a lot of people have difficulty showing up to things regularly is they aren't really clear what they're working on. They aren't really clear what they're trying to do. And that sense of the unknown leaves confusion and leaves room for interpretation in the moments that they're supposed to be working, right? Or they're supposed to be putting in the work, whatever that means. So get clear on what it is you want to attain before you start doing something. And I mean clear. If you want to, again, to use the workout analogy, I want to, put on some muscle. Cool. So you're probably going to have to go to the gym a certain amount of times a week, and you're probably going to have to exercise there a certain amount of time. When you're clear on what it is you want to do, you can then work backwards onto what needs to happen in order to achieve that. So get clear on what it is you want to attain, and get clear on, this is the third tip, get clear on why you want to attain it. If you don't know why you want to attain something, it can be difficult to push through hard moments. But if you get clear ahead of time on why you want to attain it, you can remind yourself of these things when times get difficult. So what I recommend, again, is write out what it is you want, and then write out why you want it. Write out 3 or 5 reasons. If you can't come up with 3 or 5 reasons of why you want to do this thing, then maybe that's why you're not doing it, because it's not that important to you. As you write out these whys, try to make them as emotional and as invigorating as you can. Be descriptive about it. I want to feel better in my body. I want to have more energy. I want to feel more attractive, and be able to attract someone into my life. I want to be able to defend myself, take care of myself. What are your reasons why? Get clear on those. I have again in here, I have it a couple times actually, to create small, attainable steps. And I guess I have it in here so much because it's so important. Creating those small steps is so important. Just 5 minutes. Something that I like to do, as well as, just those 5 minutes, is to track what it is I'm working on. So If meditation is a thing that you're trying to do, create a way to track it. It could be just by marking it on your calendar each day you meditate. You could have just a checklist that you put a check mark next to every time you meditate, or you could create a spreadsheet. I have a spreadsheet that I like to use that has just my different morning practices, my different afternoon and evening kind of commitments. It could be anything from, again, taking a cold shower, meditating, or it could be like a date night. But I just have something to track it because it keeps the important things at the forefront of my mind that way, and then I can actually check whether or not it's been done. Super helpful. It's something that I'm going to be sharing in my Patreon group. If you guys want to explore a little bit of that, you can check that out. I'll put a link down below. And I suppose we'll talk about that for a second while we're here. I have a Patreon group that is focused around purpose and direction. And in that group, I share resources and tips like this on how to stay consistent with creating the kind of life that you want to create. There's an accountability aspect with other people there. I match you up with a partner, and everyone in the group creates clear commitments that they are going to stick to until the next call. So if that sounds like something that could be helpful for you, again, I'll put the Patreon link down below, and you can check that out. Another thing to do when it comes to trying to create discipline in your life is to focus on one area at a time. Don't try to do 15 different things at the same time. Don't try to, get in shape while you're working on your finances and trying to mend your relationship. Just choose one area that you want to focus on and put your time and attention wholly into that area. Now, on the flip side, another thing that can be useful, and you've got to kind of feel out what works best for you, is to take time and energy to develop discipline in several areas at once. I find it really helpful to kind of sit down from time to time and get clear on what I want to create, personally, what I want to create in my relationships, what I want to create in my business, and to just hash it out. Like, what are my goals in these different areas? And then from there, I like to create, and we'll talk about this in a moment, routines, like a morning routine that supports each of those things. So although it can be useful to just develop discipline in one area at a time, for some people that's going to be the move. It can also be helpful to just change everything, right? And just reset, and I'm going to start focusing on everything now. I'm going to show up to everything differently. That can also be a very powerful way to start making adjustments in your life. So try one and try the other. You might find that one works better for you. You might find that at different times in your life, one or the other might work better for you. So you can approach everything at once, or you can approach one thing at a time. It's your choice. All right, the next tip let's talk about is morning routines. Morning routines are something that I've harped on for years and something that I've done for years because they just have such an impact on the way that I feel for the day and the way I show up to the day. But it also makes it easy to do the things I want to do or add into my life because it's like the first thing I'm doing. Wake up in the morning and knock that first thing out that's important. That, first of all, creates a momentum for the rest of the day. But second of all, it helps you do it before the day gets in the way. Before work needs you to stay late, or there's a conversation you need to have with somebody, or you're just in traffic and don't make it home in time. So I highly recommend plugging anything that you're trying to do regularly into a morning routine. And the same can be true for an evening routine. There's certain practices that I want to do in the morning, certain practices I want to do in the evening. But choose a consistent time in the day to do whatever it is you want to do. It can, again, if it's the afternoon, that's when you need to have your workout, cool, do it in the afternoon. But find consistency in time, and I highly recommend morning routines, or doing things before the day gets a hold of you when you're trying to be consistent with something. Another thing that you can do throughout is to focus on why you're doing it. And we talked a little bit about this when we talked about the why. But when times get difficult, you could remind yourself of why you're doing it. Or when you're trying to do that last rep, or you're sitting for those last 2 minutes, just remind yourself of why. Like, I'm doing this so I'm a better example for my family. I'm doing this so I can, attain financial freedom, or whatever it is your goal is. But practice bringing back the reason why you're focusing on this area when things get difficult. Outside accountability. As I mentioned before, I have an accountability group where we do, different practices, hold each other accountable. But whether it's that group or something else, finding some sort of outside accountability can be very helpful in helping you stay consistent with your goals. This doesn't have to be someone that beats you with a stick when you don't show up, but maybe it's just a friend or colleague that has a similar goal, and you guys just kind of hold each other accountable throughout the process. There's something about having to check in with someone else, about having, someone else be aware of the things that you're working on, and just knowing in the back of your mind that you're going to have to tell them whether or not you did it. So outside accountability can be a very helpful tool as well. Another thing to do, and this is before you start taking action on something, is to look at what might get in the way. If your goal is to go to the gym, maybe the gym is too far away and you need to get a membership somewhere closer. If your goal is to go to the gym, maybe you have the tendency to forget to bring workout clothes, so maybe pack workout clothes the day before. So you can just create a list of what might get in the way of this goal or this outcome or this thing I'm working on, and then come up with different ways to mitigate those things. So just a list, and then on the other side, mitigate. And then finally, explore limiting beliefs in what particular area you're working on. This is very important. Most of us aren't aware of this, but we do have beliefs and ideas about ourselves and life and the things we want to pursue that could be getting in the way of what it is that we want to do. For example, if somebody wants to save money, they might have certain internal belief systems that might prevent them from doing that. Perhaps they have an association with money, that money is the root of all evil, so saving and making more money is conflicting with part of them. So it can be useful to sit down and look at, what are my limiting beliefs around this? What are some things I might believe that could get in the way of this? And then you can take yourself through some processes for turning those beliefs around to be supportive. Byron Katie has something called the work that you can do. You could just Google the work Byron Katie, and she can take you through a process for that. I will be making a video about that process and other processes for removing limiting beliefs in the future, but for now, you can use her as a resource of how to get rid of limiting beliefs. So beyond just the tips for developing discipline, let's talk about some pitfalls when it comes to discipline. These are my beefs with the notion of discipline. It's a helpful thing to have. Like I said, it's foundational, it's important. However, as you're developing it, it can really be a hindrance if you're not easy on yourself throughout the process, if you're not kind to yourself throughout the process. If you're beating yourself up and talking trash to yourself because you're not showing up to the things you want to show up to, that's not helping anything. So developing a relationship with yourself where you're friends with yourself, where it's not, oh, you're such a piece of shit, you didn't get that done, but it's like, hey man, I know yesterday you didn't get that thing done. Let's go ahead and try again today. So just talking to yourself in a different way, not beating yourself up. If you think of like a child that's creating art, like my girlfriend's son, he's drawing pictures, creating comics, whatever, and maybe he's not feeling so good about what he's created. You wouldn't say to that child, like, yeah, you're right, that kind of does look like shit, you should be a better artist, right? Like, you wouldn't say that. You'd say, no, that looks good, you're doing good, keep at it, keep going. And that's the kind of tone and that's the kind of way you can approach yourself, to start to have that kind of dialogue with yourself. Instead of saying, oh, you're a bitch, why aren't you showing up to this? Start to be kinder to yourself in the way that you encourage yourself to show up to the work. Another pitfall of discipline is being too rigid. So this can happen in a number of different ways. But one way is you could be so rigid about your workout routine, and this was me a number of years ago, that you're neglecting important areas of your life as you work on it, as you work out. I remember a time in my life I was on a road trip with someone, and I was so hell-bent on doing my workouts that it definitely created a rift between us. This person wanted to spend time with me, and instead I was going to do my workouts to the point where, they weren't feeling appreciated or valued on that trip with us, on that trip that we were taking. So just be aware, you can be too rigid with discipline. You can be too hard on yourself. That's another example of being too rigid. But you can also be too rigid in how you do the thing that you want to do. For example, if you have a rigid morning routine that's like, I need to do this, and this, and you're traveling or you're staying over at someone else's house, maybe you can't do that routine the way that you want to, and you need to be able to have a little bit of flexibility with yourself in those instances, instead of making it a big issue, instead of making it a challenge. Another thing to be aware of, though, is to not being rigid enough, letting yourself slide. If you've committed to something, holding yourself to that, really trying to show up to that as best you can, and not letting your mind talk you out of it, but instead focusing on the thing that you want to do, why you want to do it, and being committed there. So some people definitely fall on the spectrum of being super disciplined and super on top of things, and some fall on the spectrum of being a little more easy with themselves. And it's important that we're honest about where we fall, in those two areas, and work appropriately with them. If you find that you're like insanely disciplined and everything has to be done, a certain way, a certain time, all the time, maybe relax that a little bit. Maybe that's the new practice, the new challenge, or the new edge for you. But likewise, if you find yourself just kind of sort of doing stuff, start and stop, and then it might be time to add a little bit more rigidity and just really biting down and taking care of what needs to be taken care of. So that's it. Those are some tips for developing discipline, some pitfalls with discipline. And now I want to challenge you with a practice. If you're watching this video and you're trying to be more disciplined in a particular area of your life, maybe this will be useful for you. And my challenge is just to choose one area of your life that you want to develop. And whatever that area is, get clear on what it is that you want to do there. So again, if you want to save money, what does that mean? You want to save $1, $2, $10, $100, $1,000? Get clear on exactly what the goal is. Get clear on where it is you're heading. Once you're clear on that, create a list of reasons why that's important for you. 3 to 5 reasons. And then get clear on what you need to be doing regularly to make that happen. So if I want to save money, maybe it's to put 10% aside from each check into a savings account. Cool. I know what the easy thing that I can regularly do is, right? So start doing that, and then track your progress. I'd love to hear what it is you're committing to and what your bite-sized step is. That's so important. That small step, and if you need additional support, additional accountability, again, the Patreon group exists. You can check that out. And one other thing. Oh, and again, super helpful to plug, that regular action step you're going to be taking into a morning routine and a morning practice. If it behooves you, you can look at the limiting beliefs that might be getting in the way of that thing that you want to do. But just choose, what do you want to do? How long do you want to do it? Putting a time frame on this might be helpful. 30 days, 2 weeks. That's part of getting clear. Why do you want to do it? And then just what are the regular action steps that you can do that, again, aren't too big of commitments, that you can show up to regularly, and then start showing up to those. So that's my challenge to you. I hope you liked this video. If you found it helpful, hit that like button and subscribe. And I'll be posting more content like this as the days and weeks go on. And I appreciate you taking the time to watch this. Thanks, and talk to you soon.